any good right now. Dakota Meyer is Medal of Honor recipient, retired Marine Sergeant. Sergeant, a real honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
What did you make of that? I mean, there was this past history regarding Sergeant Lopez. You don't think that should be discussed or just isolated? What are you saying?
I think with the way that PTSD is portrayed and the way that's going out, I mean, what it does is it separates veterans, you know, from people who are suffering. It separates them more from the American public. You know, every time something happens, it's like, well, you know, it's got to be PTSD. I mean, we don't. It sounds like this man didn't even see combat. I mean, so I think there needs to be a different label for, you know, a pre-existing mental health illness and PTSD that was caused because of combat. Because to be honest with you, I mean, it labels these veterans in a way to where, you know, somebody doesn't want to hire them, or they don't want to, you know, well, this veteran's going to be, all veterans are crazy, or whatever they think when they think of PTSD, which is not true, you know.
How many do you think come home from battle, regardless of the battle, with PTSD?
Well, I mean, I think it's PTSD is a normal reaction of what happens in combat. I mean, you stick your hand in a fire, you get burnt. You go to combat and you watch your friends die, and you see these things that war brings. And I mean, if you don't have a reaction to it as far as dreams or depression or as far as something like that, then I think that those are the people we need to question.
You know, people knowing what all you went through, Sergeant, I mean, obviously you kept your wits about you and your bravery about you and your modesty about you, but there is a concern that a lot of the soldiers who come back, many more than we know, are particularly stressed. And I would just be curious what someone like you feels about the move to arm everyone at a base in that event, to be ready for the next, you know, shooting event, or to be able to respond more quickly to it. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, look, outside of the base, I mean, if anybody, whoever can go get their concealed carry license or whatever, I mean, you can be better armed off the base than you can on the base. I'm not saying give everyone a weapon on the base, but if you can carry off the base out in the, you know, outside of the gate, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't carry, you know, on the base while you're there. You know what I mean? It's why not? I mean, obviously everyone knows that, you know, on the base, only the front gate and only the police officers are armed. So, you know, honestly, that's the place to go to if you're going to do an attack, because you know that no one's armed because you can't be.
Lieutenant General Milley, when he was having regular press conferences on this, Sergeant, had said, well, we have to be a little bit careful about this, because to arm everybody could create an even bigger mess. And he also talked about a system that might have to be tightened. I guess it works largely on the honor system when you come on base, that you aren't screened more aggressively. I don't know if that's the case, but do you think people should be screened more aggressively on base?
Well, I mean, I don't understand your question as far as what do you mean screened, you know, more in depth on base for what?
For guns.
I mean, if they can carry a gun out off base, if they're allowed by the rules and regulations and the screening that is in place right now to carry off base, why could you not carry on base?
So we just work, I guess what you're saying, on the honor system, that they're not going to do anything bad with that gun.
Well, what I'm saying is just like myself, like I have a concealed carry license, and if I can carry off the base and I pass everything there, why couldn't I carry on the base? I mean, it's it doesn't make sense.
You know, I've talked to a number of veterans from prior conflicts and battles and wars, Sergeant, and they say that PTSD has always been an issue, but it seems to me, as just an observer, to have gotten to be a very big issue in the last 10 years or so. Is that right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think PTSD, I mean, well, number one, you've just, I think a big thing is you know, since 9/11, 0.45% of our nation carried the burden of the war. Multiple deployments back to back. You know, I think that has an effect on our troops. I think it has an effect on their mindset. And then all of a sudden the war shut down. You know, you're so used to going in and prepping. You know, the cycle is come home 6 months and prepare to go back to the war zone again, to Iraq or Afghanistan. And then what happens when that stops? You know, it changes your whole cycle. I think that's where the PTSD comes in, as far as, you know, you come back from these combat deployments, and I mean, you have to figure out where you're going next. I mean, what your mentality is for, and to go back over and fight, you have to transition. It's a transitioning period of, okay, I'm coming back. I've got to make sense of what's happened over there, and I've got to figure out how I can live with it. But I'll say this, when we link PTSD with the Fort Hood shooting, I mean, most veterans I know, it puts a bad stigma on them. Most veterans I know who suffer from PTSD, there's a difference between having PTSD and being psychotic. You know what I mean? And I mean, I have PTSD, but I wouldn't go around and say that, I wouldn't sit here and say that, I never want to hurt anybody else. I mean, I just fought for these people.
Yeah. Real quickly, you mentioned before something interesting about how this could scare employers, prospective employers, from hiring soldiers returning to civilian life. Do you think incidents like this make that even worse?
Oh, 100%, especially when you link the word PTSD with this incident. I mean, everyone thinks, you start getting into a point of, oh, well, you never know what a veteran's going to do. I mean, you never know. We don't want him in our workplace. He might have PTSD or this or that. We don't want him to come shoot it up. I mean, it really hurts veterans because it hurts them from integrating back in society. And that's what we're trying to help these veterans do, transition back and come back to the place that they just fought so hard for. And, I mean, to be honest with you, if you put any word in the sentence besides great in the same sentence as veterans, it's really the wrong mentality if you think anything other than that about our veterans.
That's well put, Sergeant. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.